ఇది ఇండియాస్ బెస్ట్ ఫర్టిలిటీ హాస్పిటల్.
49 అంటే సంతానం, 49 అంటే సంతోషం. 49
ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్, తెలంగాణ.
అమెరికాలో మంత్రి కేటీఆర్ పర్యటన దిగ్విజయంగా సాగుతోంది. ప్రస్తుతం కాలిఫోర్నియాలోని మెల్పిటస్లో మంత్రి కేటీఆర్ మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. లైవ్ లో చూద్దాం.
Who do not understand what this means, how this translates into how well Telangana is doing. Let me point out. India has 28 states. Indialo 28 రాష్ట్రాలు ఉన్నాయి. Out of these 28 states, Telangana is the 11th largest state geographically. భౌగోళికంగా తెలంగాణ 11వ అతిపెద్ద రాష్ట్రం. In terms of population, we're the 12th largest state in India among the 28 states. But according to Reserve Bank of India, Telangana today has emerged as the 4th largest contributor to India's economic growth. It has become a powerful economic engine that supports the backward states in India, elsewhere in the country, and it continues to grow at a breakneck speed. In fact, just to put out another statistic so that you understand better, Telangana's population, if you look at it, it's only 2.5% of the total Indian population. But our contribution to India's GDP is 5%, which goes to show you that Telangana continues to punch above its weight, continues to contribute to the nation, continues to grow as a state. In fact, let me also put things in perspective for you. All of this happened. 14% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate, over the last 7 years has happened despite the pandemic last 2 years and despite not much support from Government of India. Had we had normalcy, had we had normal conditions, I would like to believe that we would have grown even further, we would have achieved even more. So how did this happen? How did this startup become so successful? How did it become a unicorn? How did it become what it has become? Synonymous with progress on industrial front, synonymous with progress on agriculture, synonymous with welfare, synonymous with development. How did this happen? Our Honorable Chief Minister of Telangana, Shri KTR Garu, is a man who comes from the grassroots. He's a man who believes that before you talk big, before you talk of the coolest things that are out there in Bay Area and elsewhere, before you talk about semiconductor fabs, before you talk about electric vehicles and all the new things that are happening, before you talk about Web3, before you talk about anything else, he has told us on day one that we as a country, we as a state, need to ensure that the fundamental needs of the people are met with. So what did we do? We said, let's get the basics right. What do the people of Telangana want? When we started our journey, we were languishing on the power front, on the electricity front. We had frequent power outages. Industry was suffering 3 days of power outages. Domestic sector, in fact, each and every house was being subjected to about 6 hours of power cut. And of course, agriculture sector was in a huge distress. 3 days of power holidays for industry, and agriculture sector never received continuous supply of even 6 hours of power during the daytime. That was the situation on the power front. The total installed capacity of power in the state of Telangana was about 7,000 plus megawatts, whereas the demand was more than 9,000 megawatts. So we were reeling under a serious power crisis when the journey of Telangana began. Within a span of 6 months, Honorable CM has been able to solve this major problem which could not be solved in the previous 65 years. For those of you who are wondering, how did he do this? Did he have a magic wand? No. He just had a steely resolve. He was determined to change the course of our electricity situation. What he had done was he went for short-term power purchases. He ensured that our existing plants, the thermal power generation plants, operated at a higher PLF, higher plant load factor. He also ensured that India is a sunshine country. We all know that. We almost have sun for 300 days a year. So he decided that we'll harvest as much solar energy as possible. So today, as a result, what has happened over the last 7.5 years is our installed power capacity has increased from 7,000 odd megawatts to 16,000 plus megawatts. We have more than doubled our installed power capacity. And for those of you who use electric vehicles, for those of you who use hybrid cars, let me also point out, we're a very environmentally conscious state. So our installed solar capacity increased from about 40 megawatts to today about 5,000 plus megawatts. So our 15% of our power, in fact, comes from renewable sources. So that's the commitment of Telangana, and that's how we've been able to take care of our power sector. Today, happy to share with you, 24 hours of free power is given to our farmers, and uninterrupted quality power supply is given to our industries, and no scheduled power outages for the domestic sector. Very few states in India can claim that. The second thing I'll point out, what are the other basic needs of people? I was raised in different parts of Telangana, but my high school was in Hyderabad. I used to commute from my home in Irramanzil colony, which is next to Khairatabad, and go all the way to grammar school, which is in Abbots, Hyderabad. Any St. Georgians here? Ek hai kya yaar? So I used to travel in a RTC bus. It was bus number was 135. It used to go from Khairatabad, Anand Nagar colony to Venkatramana colony to Khairatabad to Lakdi Ka Pool to Abbots. Every summer around this time, March, I'll narrate a story to you. Every summer, when my bus used to pass through that Khairatabad area, there used to be a huge traffic jam. You peep out and see what's going on. You could see that there are women and political leaders protesting on the ground, right in front of that Hyderabad Metro Water Supply and Sewerage Board office. Thousands, hundreds of women demanding water. Pani chahiye, 14 din mein pani nahi milta, 7 din mein pani nahi milta. That was the situation. Today, happy to share with you, proud to share with you, in 75 years of Indian independence, no single state, no single leader has done what KTR Garu has done for Telangana. Every single household in Telangana today has a portable drinking water connection. We are the only state which has provided 100% portable drinking water connection. And this is not me saying it. This is the Government of India's report, the Jal Jeevan Shakti Ministry, I think Jal Jeevan Mission Ministry, which basically declared on the floor of the House in Parliament that Telangana is the only state which has been able to accomplish this feat. How did we do it? We spent $7 billion, nearly 7 billion, nearly 40 plus crores of rupees. We connected each and every home. We laid nearly 100,000 kilometers of pipeline, which is literally, I think, 3 times the circumference of Earth. That's the vision. And in terms of execution, we were able to get it done in less than 4 years. Now, that is the kind of steely resolve. That is the kind of political will. That is the kind of dreaming big that our leadership, our Honorable Chief Minister is capable of. The third thing I'll point out on the irrigation front. Those of you who are from Telangana or those of you who are familiar with the geography of Telangana would know that Telangana had in fact, always the farmer of Telangana had in fact been heavily reliant on tube wells and bore wells. As a result, the depletion of groundwater levels in Telangana has been so rampant that even some studies of the international agencies have pointed out to a very, very acute kind of a crisis. So what our Honorable CM has done, because of the topography of Telangana, because of how Telangana is undulating and how water actually runs at a lower level, and while the contours and while the plain lands are at a higher level. I have no idea how many of you know this. If you don't believe me, you can pull out your phone and type in Google. Please type in the world's largest lift irrigation project. You will realize that it is Kaleshwaram project in Telangana, which has been completed in less than 4 years. It's the world's largest project completed by the youngest state in India in less than 4 years. We often talk about Chinese execution, how well things move in China, how a building was completed in 100 days, how a project was conceived and conceptualized in less than a couple of years, etc., etc. But what Telangana has done is nothing short of a miracle, considering that we live in a democracy. And democracy, there are a lot of challenges that are inherent in getting done. So in spite of all the hurdles, in spite of all the obstacles, in spite of all the challenges and the vagaries of democracy, our Honorable CM has been able to deliver on the irrigation front. And therefore today, the situation is such that the produce from Telangana, the harvest from Telangana is so much that even Food Corporation of India is saying, I can't procure more. I give up. We actually are now ahead of Punjab in terms of our paddy production. We have been able to surpass many other states which were leaders. Earlier, the United Andhra Pradesh used to be called Annapurna. Now I think Telangana has really become the Annapurna for entire India. It's the granary of India, which is able to produce enough for the rest of the country to be able to, consume. That has been the success, over the last 7 years, which I think, in my opinion, is one of a very, very interesting stories that has unfolded. It's besides the metrics, it's besides the numbers that I've mentioned, besides all these feats I've mentioned, there are three things I'd like to point out. While we were focused on getting the basics right on the power front, on the drinking water front, on the irrigation front, we did not focus excessively on one area, one subject. In fact, Telangana's growth story, if you ask me, centers around the 3I mantra: innovation, infrastructure, inclusive growth. That is the mantra that Telangana has followed. That is the mantra that Telangana has adopted. We innovated. A lot of people assume when I say innovation, a lot of people think, innovation is only confined to technology and tech parlance. Innovation has become a word, disruption has become a word which is synonymous with technology and startups. That's not the case. You can disrupt your processes, you can disrupt your policies. You can come out with newer ideas. You can come out with reforms in administration, disrupting the legacy processes that have been there forever. That's exactly what Telangana has done. How did we go about doing it? We took a crowdsourcing kind of model. We actually collaborated with the people. For instance, when Honorable Chief Minister wanted a new industrial policy in the state of Telangana, what did he do? He got into a room like this with various industry bodies, with the Confederation of Indian Industry, with FICCI, with FAPSI, with DICCI. There are several organizations in India which are all representatives of various industry associations. Now, all of them came into the room. He sat with them for 7 hours. It was an interactive session. He asked them questions. He said, I want the best industrial policy, for my state. And this was right after the formation. And then he asked them, what are the problems? They obviously reeled out a number of them: power, lack of incentives, lack of policy clarity, no single window system, time-bound clearances, etc., etc. He asked our administration, he asked our IAS officers. He said, where can I find the best industrial policy? Where is the ease of doing business the lowest? Then they said, somebody said Singapore. Somebody else said Finland. Somebody else pointed out to another country. He made sure that all of those policies were brought into a room. He sat with them personally, and he eventually, the first piece of legislation that has been passed by the state of Telangana in November 2014 was a policy called as the TSI Pass. Now, what is TSI Pass? TSI Pass stands for the Telangana State Industrial Project. Can you? Naveen is up to some mischief. Bay Area and connectivity challenge.
Thank you very much, madam. ఎన్నో కార్యక్రమాలు
As I was pointing out, the TSI Pass, Telangana certification system. What does it mean? Like your Easy Pass in the US, we have created an iPass. What does iPass mean? Say, for instance, Mahesh Bigala here. For instance, I take him as an example. If he, as an NRI, he owns a piece of land in his native, Nizamabad, and he wants to start a new factory which manufactures electronic goods. Let's imagine for a minute. As per TSI Pass, as per the statute, as per the legislation, Mahesh Bigala does not need to take any permission from the government of Telangana. He does not need to meet the minister. He does not need to meet the principal secretary. He need not meet the municipality. He need not meet the local Gram Panchayati. He can start construction of his factory on day one. He can hit the ground running. No state in India will tell you this. There is zero graft when it comes to industrial clearances. What happens though? In case you're wondering, does this work? That sounds too good to be true. Is he just talking his way through? He's a politician. How do I believe him? Let me tell you. When he actually starts the construction of his factory, all we request any investor is that you submit an application online simultaneously, because we need to know. While there is a self-certification process, we need to know who's doing business, who's doing what, who is investing what sector have they invested in, and what are they likely to, how much are they likely to contribute in terms of employment, etc., etc. When you submit an application online through the TS iPass portal, we promise, again by legislation, all clearances in 15 days. What happens if I don't come back to you with a clearance in 15 days? On the 16th day, it's an automatic approval by legislation. It's a deemed approval. Again, no state in India will tell you this. The third thing that also happens right after you submit an application and the 15-day window lapses, from the 16th day, we can even penalize by legislation, by statute, the senior most of the bureaucrats also, a sum of rupees 1,000 per day, should they actually be held responsible for holding up the file. Again, no state in India will tell you this. This is what has made this kind of disruption, this kind of innovation has made Telangana the place to do business in. Therefore, in Telangana today, for an entrepreneur, not only do you have ease of doing business, you have peace of doing business, your cost of doing business has come down, your quality of doing business has gone up. There is zero graft. So therefore, for those of you who are wondering, does this really work? In the last